Movie.
You destroy.
World building. World building.
Had its chance. Look at this. We could have built a new
Masterpiece.
crypto in this squalor, but you chose the
Monsters.
humans over us. I exist only to protect
Writing.
Krypton. That is the sole purpose for which I was born. And every action I take, no matter how violent or how cruel, is for the greater good of my
World building.
And now, I have no
World building.
my
Franchise.
soul. That is what you have taken from me.
I wanted to share my thoughts on GXK for a bit. So, I have never felt more miserable watching a Godzilla movie than in GXK, because at least with GXK you get the exhilaration of, pointing out the plot holes every time you watch them. At least with King of the Monsters, it's pretty enough where you can just enjoy the spectacle of what little there may be.
Hey, that film's great.
And with 2014, you can enjoy the good performances from some of the actors, excluding, of course, Aaron Taylor Johnson, because he was phoning it in, obviously. And with Kong Skull Island, well, Kong Skull Island is probably the best of the entire MonsterVerse films. But with GXK, I expected it to be, at the very least, fun bad. Because if you're gonna make a silly monster movie, right? If you're not gonna take yourself seriously, if you're not gonna pay attention to anything about your world, at the very least you're gonna make it fun, right? The only fun scene in that movie was when Kong used Zuko as a billy club. That scene.
Yeah.
Yes,
No, that
yes.
was great.
That scene got a chuckle out of me. And it was probably the only time I laughed in the entire movie, because the entire time I was just staring blankly. You know the Homelander meme where he's just staring at the
Oh yeah, that was
screen.
basically
yes, yeah.
That was
Yeah.
me. Yeah, the entirety of the movie, I was just staring blankly at the movie.
And then you
Bring
get
that
a
up.
chuckle with the Zuko bludgeon, and then be like, "Huh."
I bet he
There was,
survived all of that blunt force too.
How much they survive everything. The amount. That reminds me. The amount of times you see Kong, not Kongs, the giant apes, hanging off ledges, and then they get knocked off, and they go, "Oh!" and you're supposed to assume they're dead. And you're like, hasn't Kong jumped further than that? And at some points, I'm pretty sure Kong has fallen further than that at some point.
He fell further when he fell into Hollow Earth the first time.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
but you see, he's the main character, so it's fine.
Oh no, literally, there is pure protagonist plot armor here, because you have Miguel, who does everything logical, and then gets killed by random fluke creature thing that's Tree, but then the protagonists touch some the shield barrier thing. They have no clue what this is, but for some reason, because the Chosen One plot line, they are not punished for that decision at all, because it all worked out for them, because what is literally just magic.
I was not expecting Gia to be the girl that's the key to everything, but
She
here
is
we are.
literally the key to everything.
Yeah,
And then she also doesn't have to sacrifice anything at the end of the movie either.
Yeah, that was certainly a scene in the movie.
Yeah.
Am I the only one? Am I the only one who was really pissed off by how they introduced Mothra back into the MonsterVerse?
Yeah, I didn't get that. Like, wait, so she's just back from the dead? What the hell?
Yeah, I was
No
confused,
larva
and, like, the
form,
way she was
literally just
formed-
flooped back into existence.
Yo, for
Yeah,
real though, like
I was
she
just
She
like,
literally
yeah,
raised
sure.
her hand,
It's
and then
just
the
like a
next second
copy and
Mothra
paste,
was
like,
there.
what?
The entire time I was like, okay, yeah, sure, we're doing this now. The funny thing about that scene, though, is that Mothra wasn't actually supposed to even be in the film. It was supposed to be a completely new monster that the Iwi tribe worshipped. But when in test screenings, people were like, "Oh man, this could have been Mothra," and so the directors and the writers and the CGI artists were like, "Okay, I got you, fam," and they shoved in Mothra in a
Yeah,
place where she
they-
didn't belong.
It was so
And
weird, like the
you
way
can
she
also
was
still
just
see the
formed.
original Titan there too. Like it's still the original Titan on some of those cave paintings.
Yeah.
What was
Yeah.
it?
Oh yeah, I didn't notice that. I was too busy. I was
Wait,
too busy.
what was it?
It was like it looked kind of like an angel, kind of with like arms and legs, but it had like phoenix wings. Let me
It
see if
was
I-
basically
was
just
that the
an angelic
fucking
phoenix.
Phosphora thing or whatever the fuck.
Yeah, phosphor.
Yeah.
I think that was-
Yeah. I was like, damn, yeah.
I find it hilarious that the Iwi tribe gave the what is supposed to be the god of all titans this super cool name Shimo, and then the ape, they just call him the Scar King. He doesn't have his own little name. He's just the Scar King
Yeah.
because the Scar King works less of a name and more of a title. 'Cause,
Yeah,
you know,
you either get names like Jinshin Mushi, Tiamat, Behemoth, Amaluk, and Shimo, and then you get things like Warbat, Skart.
Dude, no, Warbat had an original name. It was like Nizuki or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bro, that was like better than what the fucking retarded name was.
Also,
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
Behemoth is a bit of a lazy name, to be honest.
I will say this, like, I'm fine with Behemoth purely because of the fact that, like,
Yeah, that motherfucker.
they're basing them off of, like, original named monsters, or, like, mythological creatures. But yeah, this was the original Iwi god monster thing in the movie.
It looks like an
Yeah.
alien.
It does look like an alien.
It
Looks
just
like
looks like a
Egyptian.
fucking. Oh, it looks like an angel that got kicked out of heaven.
So,
It's got the weird Egyptian style wings to it, and then
yeah.
I don't even know what the rest of that's meant to be. Is that a goat?
You know, it's just it not like
It's got
it
goat
looks
legs.
like an alien with like bird wings on it. Like
You know,
Yeah,
there
then
actually
you got,
is
like,
a
goat
goat
legs.
Titan.
it would have made more like Bernie's whole comments about aliens would have made more sense because this looks like an alien.
Yeah.
Am I the only one
very-
who hated him as well throughout the film?
No,
Oh,
he's
he's-
annoying.
Wait, who?
Oh no, Bernie. Yeah, Bernie was annoying. He was. I was literally in my head
Yeah.
like, shut the fuck up.
You know, I will say, surprisingly enough, Bernie is the least badly written character besides Gia, because at least Bernie acknowledges that what's happening should not be happening. For example, the guard that got eaten by the tree, he's the only one that cares that he died, while everybody just shrugs it off. Even the child that just witnessed the man dying right in front of her.
real, though.
But yeah, he is the only one that seems to care that people are dying and weird things that should not be happening are happening. And just
For
for
real.
that, just for that, I will say that he's probably the least damaged, but that doesn't damage, and that doesn't
Justify him?
justify everything else that he's done up until this point, because he is an unnecessary character. Let's just put it that way. He's like, you know that character Molly from The Amazing World of Gumball that over time the show forgot, and they turned that into a joke where like the universe forgot she existed, and they have to bring her back from non-existence into existence. That's the place where they found Molly. That's where I think Bernie should go, into just non-existence. I think the world should just forget about him, because he was unnecessary in Godzilla versus Kong, and he was unnecessary in this movie.
Yeah.
Again, Miguel is my favorite character of this movie.
Oh, yeah.
Man had the most logical decisions and the most logical take of everything, and they killed him for it. The plot.
You know,
killed
that's
him.
actually very telling, because they do something similar with some people in GVK. I don't remember what it was exactly, but yeah, like a lot of the people that make the most logical decisions in the movie get punished for it. Like for
Mhm.
Josh, I remember
Right.
Josh and GVK, the fat kid, he was probably the most logical character, and he gets bullied for it. And now people are actually dying for making logical decisions, and I think that is very telling of where the franchise is headed and what the intentions of the director are and what the director is trying to say to the audience. It's both cheeky and a dick move, you know.
Oh, I did mention because he said, Blackaroon, he said, it's the intentions of Wingard or whoever was doing it in GXK, to do certain things. And I remember some of the stuff from Godzilla vs Kong coming out, and just the amount of stuff that Wingard didn't decide. Like, he came into the film and he was told that Mechagodzilla was going to be in the film, so he then had to work with that. And then he was trying to think of stuff, and then somebody told him that Ghidorah was psychic, so he just put that into the film. And when you hear stuff like that, you're like, how much of this film is actually your film? How much of it is just random bullshit that's just been thrown in by other people, and you've just gone, yeah, sure.
Yeah, like the producers being
Well-
like, "You're gonna have to have this in."
After seeing his adaptation of Death Note, I don't think either one would have been better than the other, to be honest.
Oh God.
Yeah. Last night after watching the film, I was like, you know, I kind of wish this guy would put a little more effort into the writing of this film, or the writers and the director would put more effort in the film. But when I woke up this morning, I thought to myself, what am I saying to myself? This is the guy that did the live action Death Note.
So like, I love the fact that apparently after Mechagodzilla, for some reason, the Monarch thought it was a good idea to create essentially like a pseudo Mjolnir for Kong, and they thought, yeah, no, totally, let's build armor for Kong. You guys, government, you understand this is a good idea. You guys, you understand, we want armor for the monkey. And the government's like, no. And they're like, but they shut down our project. We got a prototype down here. It's like, that is contrived. That is the contrivance of contrivances.
No.
Isn't it
What's
funny that
contrived?
it was... Oh, go ahead.
No, go on.
Well, I was gonna say that I find it hilarious that somehow that arm was tuned specifically to counter frostbite. Like they knew that this was gonna happen.
Bro, they fucking knew
I
it
didn't
was
even
gonna
know.
happen. That's crazy.
It's again, it's floop juice. It literally just does whatever the plot demands of it.
I was going to say that it's very, 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 very convenient that the only bit of armor that they had ready for him was the exact piece of armor that was needed for the exact body part that was damaged.
Oh yeah,
For real.
that's so true. Actually,
It's that one scene. That one scene has got so much bullshit going on. The
Davy Jones.
Davy Jones device, the sensing, the tricorder, the right arm robot thing, the frostbite cure. Is there anything else I'm forgetting?
All the different Iwi floop juices that do anti-gravity stuff where they open up other things and it's never
that was on
properly
there as
explained.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah. But here's the other
and
thing: is that I love how they have the scene where Bernie's documenting what the Iwi are doing, and then Trapper's like, "Yeah, bro, but undocumented tribes and stuff they don't stay like that if we explain all this stuff. So you should leave not present things, bro." But
Yeah.
it's the entire thing they built up about the Iwi is that they're this perfect society that we should be emulating. So then shouldn't we be doing as much research as possible to integrate what's working for them into the universe? Because like I've said in other places, the Monsterverse is a terrible place to live in because you have a private organization, which for some reason is now a private organization, which I'll get into in a second, that covers for so much damage, and there's so many people that are dying because of Monarch's decisions. Again, Black Aroni's video, No Sympathy for the Monster, that is paying Jeb bucks right now. It is Jebception for that video, because Monarch's only plan for when Godzilla came after Kong, when Kong came up to the surface, was literally just to run. They had no alternatives, and they knew Godzilla was gonna beat Kong, and they couldn't use the glove because the glove's in Hollow Earth. So there's that. Not to mention the fact that, again, Monarch's now a private organization, even though in King of the Monsters
They
and
got
in
revealed.
2014 they were associated with the American government, which again
Right.
makes no sense.
Yeah, and weren't they like revealed to the world? So it's like,
Yeah.
you know, the fuck, you know?
Like the fact that like just regular people haven't risen up against their governments to be like, you know what? Can you literally just take over Monarch and save us?
Yeah, like save us
Yeah.
from the stupid company who is making dumb decisions.
And getting
I will
hundreds
say
of people
this.
killed.
I will
Yeah,
say
or-
this.
I think I remember those like the protests and and the news for King of the Monsters. That's what y'all mean, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it was that in King of the Monsters, but like now, like
Oh,
the incompetency of Monarch's even worse.
Yeah.
Monarch should not be an independent company. You know how in Captain America: Civil War, the governments of the world just concocted the Sokovia Accords to keep the Avengers in check because, like, not the UN took over the Avengers operations, and of course, you know, the whole conflict was, oh, well, what we're surrendering our right to choose when, like, what if we need to go someplace and they don't let us? Well, my argument is, why wouldn't they? So, this is in regards to the Monsterverse. With Monarch in particular, they are not getting prevented from doing from performing operations. The only operations that they should be prevented from doing, like the biomechanical arm, they just flip off the government like, oh yeah, screw you. At the very beginning of the movie, 5 minutes in, Eileen Andrew tells the the Italian government to suck it when yeah.
Oh, yeah, forgot about that.
So I literally it's so she says that if it weren't for Godzilla, the world would be flattened, as if Godzilla didn't already flatten the world alongside other monsters in both King of the Monsters and GVK. And Monarch is a company that is subject to international law, so I don't think they're authorized to, you know, really tell the government to suck it. I mean, they don't have the authority or the clearance. They just can't. What do you think would happen if, because this is an American-based, well, actually, no, this is just a worldwide coalition of scientists studying giant monsters. They, like, different governments can pull their funding whenever they want to, and they can, like, complain to different authorities, different presidents, if they really wanted to, and have Monarch, you know, not even be a thing anymore, because they don't have any authority in government decisions whatsoever. If the government needs Monarch to do something, they have to do it, and if they need to stop doing something, they have to, because number one, civilian lives are at risk. Whenever a monster does anything at all, civilian lives are at risk, and the goal of the government is to protect its people. So otherwise, you failed. I mean, a lot of governments are failing right now, but you know, that's irrelevant. The next thing is to make sure that other agents in politics and you know, the world scene, they don't interfere with the protection of their civilizations, of their governments, of their cities. And Monarch is actively preventing the military from defending itself, and we're placing our lives in the hands of indifferent monsters that do not care how many humans die to achieve their goals. I mean, one can argue, and I had this conversation with last night I had this conversation with Sea Monster in his podcast. You should check it out. Seriously, how many times can Godzilla fight a monster and kill hundreds of thousands of people incidentally in the process? How many times can he do that before the amount of corpses, the amount of blood on his hands match that of the monsters that he's trying to kill? And at which point, you know, humanity no longer exists. Like, how many times can he keep doing that before people start to realize that Godzilla is a problem? Because at least with Apex, they started early. They were like, okay, you know what? Ever since 2014, they were like, okay, you know what, Godzilla? I don't think it's logical to put our lives in the hands of these indifferent gods. So what are we gonna do? We're gonna create our monsters of our own, and we're gonna defend ourselves. On paper, that was a really good idea. The stupid part was using Ghidorah's head as the base. They should have just built it normally, like a normal giant robot. That would have been the more logical solution.
Yeah.
But no, we need a way for the plot to happen the way it does. But if they were to build the robot normally, and I
would have loved to have seen Mechanicus instead of Mechagodzilla.
What? Oh.
Well, the other thing too is that like at this point now we have both Mechagodzilla and the Titan Hunter, and the Titan Hunter on its own was able to throw hands with Kong. So in universe, there is technology that could be used to like square up with the Titans on that level. Plus, let's not forget that we have the Oxygen Destroyer as well.
Oh yeah, I completely forgot about that. They should just make the Oxygen Destroyer again. What's really they already have the perfect deterrent.
The Oxygen Destroyer also wasn't developed by Monarch either. It was developed by the U.S. government.
Exactly. So the government doesn't actually need Monarch anymore at that point. Oh my god, I just realized that.
Wait.
Thank you for bringing it up, because now the government doesn't need Monarch.
Well, no, the other thing too is that like the only way for that issue to be resolved is that if you introduce a monster created by the Oxygen Destroyer, because that is the only way we can be like, it might not be a good idea to use the Oxygen Destroyer because it literally created a giant monster of its own. So, like,
that's a really good idea. It's a shame no one's ever come up with that before.
Well, I mean, no, literally at this point, Destroyer is the logical conclusion, or the logical next villain. Because think about this: you have Godzilla, Mothra, Zuko, Shimo, all the apes, all the Titans, all technically on the same side. So you need something that's able to take on all of these monsters, or at least the majority of them, in a one-on-one or 1v something fight. And considering the fact that the Oxygen Destroyer is really convenient for humanity, to justify in the universe for them not to be using it, you need to have given it the biggest downside, and Destroyer literally fits that perfectly.
That's actually something King of the Monsters does. One of the many things it does very well. Go watch my videos. There's we talked about the fact that Godzilla kills people when he saves the world, which he does. And you say, oh, when is the point that people decide that he's more of a downside than an upside when it comes to defeating Titans, defending the world, etc.? And they showed that in King of the Monsters. They try to kill him. They think they kill him. They're like, hooray, we've killed Godzilla. Oh shit, Ghidorah's still alive. It's like, oh yeah, we just destroyed our best chance to defend ourselves against that thing. It's like, better the devil you know type thing, or the lesser of two evils type idea. That's again an interesting concept which could have been carried forward, which they haven't really done with GVK and GXK because the writing is shit. And again, doing that with the Oxygen Destroyer, we have this weapon. It's apparently very good at, if not killing Titans, putting them out of commission so hard that we won't see them for years, and possibly decades. It's like, that is a really good weapon to use. Why aren't we using it more? It's like, yeah, why don't we put a downside to it? And I've just thought of this. What if, instead of making giant robots, they went, let's make Oxygen Destroyer grenade launcher turret things, and we just put them around the cities, and loads of governments around the world start buying up Oxygen Destroyer cannons, and then when a Titan pops up, they use them, and then Monarch are like, oh, you shouldn't be using those willy-nilly, we have no idea about the side effects of those things, and the governments are like, no, we don't care, we just want to get rid of the Titans. And that's the storyline. And then one by one, DNA from the Titans is then mixing with the side effects, fallout of the Oxygen Destroyer's weapons, and then creating monsters which Oxygen Destroy monsters. And then at some point later in the film, a couple of them join together to make Big Destroyer. It's like, that could make a great film all on its own.
That also logically can justify you having so many filming locations because you've given an in-universe justification as to why you'd have all these other destroyers in other places. Plus, all the major cities of the world that we want that, like Wingard and Co. want to see destroyed all the time, would want these things there. So yeah, you've.
Am I the only one who really hated seeing all the landmarks?
Like, I understand like why they did it because like when you think of a city, you think of its landmarks. So then seeing them like destroyed is like part of the fun. Like that's why like whenever you're in like any of the Godzilla fighting games, they have them in these big locations because you recognize the landmark. Oh, isn't it so cool to see this monster use the landmark for this reason? Things like that. But like, it does sort of feel like the only aspect of these areas was their landmarks. Not to mention the fact that like in universe, there's probably so much history that we will never know about because of what the Titans have done to the locations they've been in.
By the way, a bit on top of that, regarding what you said, Animus, the thing about that situation, however, is that number one, they did not wait for Godzilla to kill Ghidorah because Godzilla already had him dead to rights. They just ruined their own chance, and so that would be a case of the military not knowing how to use their weapons properly because the idea
they thought they were going to kill
good.
both of them. They didn't realize it wouldn't kill Ghidorah.
Oh, well, yeah. Well, even still, like they didn't. I mean, wait, hold on. So, did Monarch know that that Ghidorah was not of this Earth? Because I'm pretty sure they did.
No, they learned about that afterwards.
Yeah,
they like Eileen Andrews kind of pieced it together, and she was like, "Oh wait, no, I'm talking about the wrong fucking character." Like the one lady,
Chen.
the one twin fairy lady. I don't know.
Chen, yeah.
And then she kind of pieced it together, and she was like, "Oh, he's from space."
So that's why he survived. Okay then. Okay then. Well, at that point, that point in the movie, in the film, I would guess it's less of a catastrophic. It's less catastrophic than I thought at that point. Then, but even still,
I will say there's a lot of stuff that people get wrong about King of the Monsters. I've got a video called Godzilla Reviews or How I Learned to Hate People and Love the Big G.
Check it out.
There's a lot of stuff that people say about King of the Monsters, especially about Mark Russell, where they go, why is this happening? I don't understand it. It's so stupid. It doesn't make any sense. It's like, no, it does. It's all there. You just didn't watch the film.
Oh, that guy knows how to do everything. It's like, even though it's like he has a master's. Like
he's a Dr. Mark Russell master engineer.
Another thing that's interesting too is anyone else realize the fact that we've now gone through 2 Monarch directors that have no characterization?
Yeah, didn't they say?
They
said someone was in charge.
Yeah, they have a new director. It's one sec, wait, because I said ... Mark in my notes. I just need to find it. Oh yeah, Director Hampton. That's the new director.
Who the fuck's that?
Is he the guy that did the Monarch show?
No. Director Hampton's the new director of Monarch and GXK that replaced the guy who.
Oh wait, I'm such a dumbass. You're talking about something else. Never mind.
They replaced Lance Reddick in GBK. You know, who had like. I mean, admittedly, most people wouldn't even remember that because he only had like 10 seconds in that movie tops. And it's only like just to be like, this is the day we feared. I give him the order, Doctor. The city is being evacuated. That's his only line of dialogue. His name showed up in the credits, but he was like barely a presence in it. And that guy was such a really good actor. May he rest in peace because he was so awesome.
No, rest in peace for him.
Was that his last performance?
No.
It was in John Wick.
John Wick.
Apparently, his last performance is going to be in that upcoming John Wick spinoff, Ballerina.
Yeah, that's his last performance. I guess that'll be his last appearance. I mean, we've all been I've let you guys like go on because I've given you guys like a great run, pretty much. But I kind of want to like give like some impressions in, which I mean, I do have a video coming, like literally just coming out right now, like a first impressions of GXK. But if anyone wants to like what I pretty much thought of it, at least, just to kind of go, or at least in general. So yeah, basically when I came out of the movie, I will say I pretty much kind of enjoyed it, but I would definitely say it is easily the weakest entry in the MonsterVerse.
Definitely.
Because like just kind of listen to the discussion here, as well as like even in the video that I pretty much have put together. It's gonna be it's an unscripted video, so it's definitely not my best of work, pretty much. But it's just something to get out there, just in case anyone's wondering. But yeah, the first thing I just want to like say is Godzilla. What the fuck? I mean, I still love you, but dude, what the like? Like I would say, especially like it's not like this is like the Godzilla that we knew in 2014 and KOTM, where he was still like somewhere in the middle of like, it's not like he goes out of his way to avoid collateral damage, but it's not like he was going out of his way to like just kill a whole lot of people. Like he wasn't pulling like -1 Goji, where he's like literally just maliciously killing whole scores of people. Like, I mean, I guess we probably should have figured that since GBK, Godzilla, as he was in GBK, he was kind of like, that seemed way, pretty much doesn't really mind committing collateral damage, like, even more so than before. But in this film, like, just seeing him just swimming up through Egypt, plowing through bridges, like where you could definitely tell there were people still on them. Like it's just nothing. It's like it doesn't even matter at this point. But yeah, as far as like whether or not Titans should be held accountable like Godzilla for the amount of deaths and collateral damage caused, the reason to kind of like just give him leeway in 2014, through KOTM, was because in 2014 it was like the first instances of him kind of showing up, so there would be at least like a divide from people, and all the instances that he did show up in cities, whether it's like Honolulu or San Francisco, it was to take on like creatures that were actively killing, or at least like actively like being a threat. The most that happened that where he committed the most collateral damage in 2014 was the Golden Gate Bridge, but even then, he wasn't even actively attacking the military. It was the military that kind of shot first, and him plowing through the Golden Gate Bridge was kind of the result of him just kind of getting pelted from all sides, pretty much. And so that's why, when you have KOTM, there's like this, divide in terms, as well as like whether or not Monarch, the company that is like, knows about these Titans, should be kind of like, getting that information out there and reveal stuff. But yeah, let me just say, there should, like, at this point, it makes even less sense now, more than ever, that to not make like a movie to address the damage that's been, the collateral damage and the death that's kind of going on, especially during that fight in Rio by the end of this movie. It's like, it's like, if another MonsterVerse movie comes up and it doesn't even address this, then I can say, now I'm more than willing to like completely call foul, pretty much.
Monarch has the opportunity to do that, and all we get is just things in the background and just a little tiny bit of world building on that subject, explaining what the aftermath is. We only get like one scene in one of the later episodes and just stuff in the background. We never get full addressing, we never get like a full stop. Let's explore how are people dealing with Godzilla. Imagine just a random family that got torn apart because of Godzilla. Or better yet, or even how would even people of different religions react to Godzilla? That's all. Like that's all. One thing I've always wanted to because I'm a big sucker for religion, because I grew up in a religious household, so like maybe I'm a little biased on that subject, but that is one thing I've always wanted to see, especially like in modern media. Like for example, Daredevil. One of the reasons why Daredevil is one of my favorite pieces of media of all time is precisely because we deal with so many different subjects, addiction, loss, postpartum depression, heavy subjects for a Marvel project. We also get faith, forgiveness, like of the people that, well, not forgiveness, but dealing with people that are just so evil yet so powerful, and all you could really do is and you want to eliminate it once and for all, but that it'll cost you your soul, right?
Yeah.
And we don't get similar things in the MonsterVerse at all. And whenever you talk to the to fans about this, he was like, "Oh, you want a sad and depressing story? No, I want a good story." Like if
we just want a good story.
People, yeah,
no, I'm fucking tired of fans being like, "Oh, you just want boy, bro. You just want a good story."
Well, here's the other thing too, is that like at this point now we have gotten GXK and GVK. You've gotten two like balls to the walls action, turn off your brain action movies. If we got a serious movie and like all we got was just like a promo for it, and it was like literally all of the events of GXK are addressed, and like we get to see a down to earth story being teased in a trailer, I know for a fact there'd be so many people, Godzilla fans and non fans, being like, "Bro, we just want to see the monsters fight. This is boring."
Yeah.
Like
they will look at this podcast
because,
and think we just hate fun. That's the thing.
Like, yeah, no, it's that because like the only time we've never seen something go from silly to serious when it comes to the Godzilla series in terms of in the same like universe or the same like continuous story. And the fact is that if that happened and people were like, "Oh, that's super cool," I'd be like, "Bro, you just want to suck at the fun of everything." Like
which is kind of ironic, at least in my context. Sorry, but I'm sorry.
Oh no, you're good. Like you're good.
Yeah.
Say what you want to say.
I mean, like when if we were to hear people say that, like, "Oh, you just want to suck the fun out of everything," it's like one of the first things I literally just said was I enjoyed GXK, the New Empire, which is and GVK. So I mean, personally, I enjoyed those movies as like just fun monster movies, but I just think it's funny to kind of like when people just like would misrepresent some of us on here.
I would also levy the point, like, are serious movies not fun? Because John Wick is a serious movie.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Like, that's
It's
the thing,
supposed
like,
to be.
That's the thing with me. It's like I'm not like for me. I'm not saying fun movies are bad. Like I love fun, but it's like if it's gonna be fun, it's gotta be a good story. You know?
Yeah, Batman Begins has a lot of like fun moments in there, and that film is
there's like lots of movies that
I
are
think
fun.
people
that are,
conflate
good
excitement with fun. That's the thing. They conflate
Yeah.
excitement because, for example, like if there's no action in a Godzilla movie, like if there's no like super duper hyper stylized monster action, then it's gonna be boring. But I don't see any Godzilla fan calling -1 boring.
Same.
No, not at all. Not even a little bit.
If
That
I heard
movie's
someone-
engaging
People are
as
gonna
all
do it
hell.
just to be cheeky. I know for a fact that people are gonna do it just to be cheeky, and they're wrong for saying it, but they are gonna say it. But no, nobody calls -1 boring, and the reason
I know
why is
there's-
because everything
There's
about
also
it is well
people
written
who are
and
gonna
exciting.
already be like, "Yo, bro, you've already lost the argument because you're bringing up -1 and comparing it to GVK." There's so many people who are like, "Bro, if someone compares -1 to GVK, don't listen to what they're saying." It's like, dude, really?
Yeah, I don't have a lot to say about GXK, to be honest. I mean, I wrote notes on the movie where I could, and it was just for I actually will give it leeway. It's not as bad as GVK, but at the same time, it's still amongst one of the worst Godzilla movies in the MonsterVerse. So I don't think. At this point, I can only see things getting progressively worse because, I mean, a serious movie after, not even like a serious movie, because the tone doesn't really, dictate the quality of a movie. It's the writing. But, I mean, after this, how do you even fix, like, what, after GXK, how do you fix the MonsterVerse? What do you fix everything? Because, like, at the very end of King of the Monsters, we see Godzilla pretty much nuking a place 3 times in a row, like the first blast and then the second blast and then the third blast to finish Ghidorah off, and then atomic breath, and then he roars on a pile of rubble, dead, just destroyed. I don't remember if the city was evacuated or not.
There was,
It was fully
Yeah,
evacuated.
Okay, well,
That's
it was.
actually
But that
something.
city is. Go ahead.
I was going to say, this is something I brought up in my video. Previous MonsterVerse films, the monsters, the arrival of a Titan, the waking up of a Titan, was an event. It was a thing. It was such a thing that literally the entire US military, everybody was focusing on these things. It was world news. Everyone was panicking about it. One of the good things that Monarch Lom actually did was have the reaction of the school kids to the news and stuff like that. It was an event to the point where they would go, where's it going? It's going this way. It's going to take it ages to get this way, but we know it's going this way, so we just evacuate the areas around it. GXK is like, oh yeah, Godzilla fights all the monsters. Cut to Rome, and for some reason Scylla, who's now orange, I don't remember her being orange, is just in the middle of Rome, and there's people in the city. You're like, well,
I'm still confused.
Here's the thing.
In Rome.
So the only reason why Scylla was in Rome is because of what happened in Hunted. But here's the problem: is that like they don't mention anything that happened in Hunted. So
they don't. So
the only reason why Scylla was in Rome was because another company that they sent a false flag of like an energy false flag reading that drew Scylla to a few different locations, and Rome was the final one, and Godzilla had been pursuing her that entire time, and they finally converged at that location, which is why they were fighting in Rome. But like the problem is that company is involved with Monarch, but then the guy who owns that company ended up dying in the comic, but we get nothing. There is no context to anything that happened in Hunted.
Yeah.
See, as somebody who's never really read Hunted, I just kind of figured like, oh, it's Scylla just attacking Rome just to give us like a cold open for Godzilla's introduction. Like I never really thought much of it beyond that.
No, like it feels like a cold open, and then it kind of like now that like looking at this movie, it feels like Hunted had to make a story around that cold open because they were like, we want to have Godzilla fight a monster in a major city. We haven't done Rome yet, so let's do Rome. What's one of the popular monsters? Oh, let's do Scylla, because Scylla already fought Godzilla in Dominion, so it's not like Behemoth where him and Godzilla have never fought. Let's have Godzilla and Scylla fight, and now make a comic around that in prep for the new movie.
Yeah, and that it's, to be honest, I kind of think it like the less you kind of like acknowledge like that the material like outside of the movies, like to be honest, it almost kind of seems like the better, because these films don't really expect like as much as these movies are made for fans, they're also made for the general public, who pretty much more than likely aren't going to be like aware that there even is like a tie-in comic or a novelization or what have you. So at the end of the day, it's kind of like I'm not even like, even though as much as like the Netflix Skull Island or Monarch Lom are probably like even more arguably certainly like more recognizable, or at least like to potentially people out there than something like the GXK The Hunted. It's pretty. I would say like it almost seems like you're probably like better off just like not even like acknowledging all that stuff.
No, you're right.
GXK doesn't even acknowledge Monarch Legacy of Monsters because there's no mention of Axis Mundi, and there's nothing about that.
Because they were written separately.
I wonder how many times Monarch staff like went into a access point for Hollow Earth, which are a whole other thing, and ended up at Axis Mundi by accident. And like, how many people have been time displaced because of that? Like, let's go on Hollow Earth. Oh wait,
years.
Yo, bro, I've seen some stuff. Thank God I'm home. And like, it's like they got blipped from Endgame. Like they're like, bro.
Watching Dune Part 2 right after. Watching Godzilla X Kong right after Dune Part 2 gave me such whiplash, I will admit. Because
understandably,
you're watching a good movie and then you just jump directly into a bad movie, and it
like that's a good comparison too, because a lot of people are like, yo bro, it's a movie about giant monsters. What are you expecting? Logical consistency? Me looking at Dune 2, it's a movie about spaceships, space worms, and space drugs.
No, it's not even that.
Yeah.
It's a feudal space. It's a feudal system in space on drugs with giant sandworms.
And people fight with knives. And like, it's
and they have like shields like made out of pure energy, like just surrounding their bodies, pretty much.
Yeah.
Taking place in 10,000 years.
if we compare things based off of whether they could happen in reality or not, the entire concept of fiction would fall apart, and then stories would be useless. We don't look at stories based off of whether they could happen in real life or not. When we're looking at the plot of a movie, we're looking at verisimilitude. And the thing about real life is that real life, 99.999% of the time, it makes sense. When it doesn't make sense, it's usually because of people, not because of reality itself. Just because there are things that we don't understand about it doesn't necessarily mean it doesn't make sense, because science will always find explanations to things, and it will always, there will always be the mathematics behind it, and sometimes the mathematics can become more accurate over time. So the reality makes sense. So verisimilitude is just the reality of a fictional world making sense within its own context. So when you're telling me that, for example, Godzilla can do this, but all of a sudden now you're saying, oh, he does this now, you're starting to see the problem, right?
Yeah, it's all about internal consistency. Internal consistency is how we're able to understand the stakes and what's going on in the story. Without that, it's just you're just doing without stakes, without internal consistency. You get shit like the most recent batch of MCU movies like Multiverse of Madness or Ant-Man Quantumania. Where we're just throwing shit on the wall, see what sticks. We don't really care. Let's just get this out as quickly as possible. Oh wait, the CG artists haven't finished MODOK. Well, too bad. We gotta get this out there. Go. Crunch time, motherfucker.
That's another thing is it's these people don't take their time to make these films, and even it takes them a long time. It's do they even spend time or not?
Yeah.
Well, the other thing too is that I think a lot of these people are probably very passionate, and I think that there's probably a very generalized way about how the workflow and sort of production time works for these movies. There should be different structures, payment methods, and just an overall restructuring of a movie based on what requires of it. Heavy CGI films like this should not go through a similar production and phase as other films that, even if they have CGI in them, don't rely on them as much as this, because it's really clear that you could have these artists probably spend far more time working on this and probably made an even better product.
Yeah.
I also have to ask, the diagram for the Hollow Earth is so stupid. So we have the surface world, right? And then we have the gravity well, which is where the mantle of the planet should be. They're essentially saying that between the crust of the planet and the Hollow Earth is just a black void of nothingness, really?
Because when they enter, you got that huge black emptiness,
Mm-hmm. In GVK, it's just a big void. In GXK, when they went down into it, the only time they actually showed them going through it, you can see light reflecting off of rock walls or something. Yeah. So it looks like there's an actual physical tunnel, but at the same time, they're showing the 2001 floopy light shit. So I have no idea what they're trying to tell us.
It's not even consistent with itself with GVK. My God.
If Godzilla can bore a hole into the center of the Earth, and it could still function as an entry for the Hollow Earth, then what is the point of having an entrance in the first place?
Yeah, there's actually there's something. When I was making a recent video, when Kong hits Godzilla in the face, so I was getting the clips for that, and there's the bit where Link flies the heave out of the hole that Godzilla made. He says something, but it's really hard to tell what he says. He says something like, "We're going over the horizon," or something like that as he comes out the hole, and I only heard it now, and I was like, wait, what did he say?
We're breaching the gravity, something.
Yeah, something like that, yeah. So it makes me wonder again, is it GVK's writing has gone to absolute balls and there's supposed to be something else going on there?
Yeah, so actually
changed.
Since you did mention that, I'm gonna bring up my iPad since I've been drawing while we've been talking as a comparison. So when Godzilla is here and he roars down at Kong and the monkey is right there, you have the hole that's there. and what's it called?
It would take 4 hours, by the way.
Yeah, but like when the heat.
Oh yeah, if it took that long, how come it didn't turn into daytime? Like I get that it was
Yeah.
still nighttime, but like,
It-
come on.
The speed
It
of
was, like,
sound,
close to
at the
morning,
speed
at
of
least.
sound, it would take 4 hours for Godzilla's roar to get to Kong.
Not to mention, like with how, like, because remember,
That's
once
ridiculous.
you get to here, gravity inverts. So when Kong is falling like this, when he hits this point, he falls up like that. So the heave would also then have to make sure it readjusts itself at this point here, which is why when they come out there, they have to do the weird floople thing to avoid Godzilla's breath. So, like, it's really weird because in other places, unlike that entrance, you have like weird floopy portals that do like weird, like all the weird disco light stuff. So you have like blah blah blah, blah blah blah, all that stuff. And then finally, when you get to the other side, that's when you enter like Hollow Earth stuff.
Yeah, because
which
like
is
you get
weird.
all the empty stuff, you know.
Mhm.
By the way,
what-
Zim, I'm gonna send you something regarding the Hollow Earth. I'm looking for it now because I actually have a point to make regarding what I mentioned before. I'm gonna send it to you in a minute. Just give me a second.
One potential defense that sorry about that. One potential defense I could make about like as far as like the roar off between Godzilla and Kong through the holes in the Hollow Earth is that I think Kong isn't necessarily is that it could be interpreted that Kong isn't hearing Godzilla roaring from down there, but rather it's just like Kong kind of knows it's Godzilla because of the atomic breath just coming through the ground. So he's just roaring at Godzilla like in anger because it's just going through the throne room, pretty much what have you. But that's pretty much that's all I got, pretty much.
To reference
other than that-
to reference Animus's video, which is also referencing Omniview's video, you can stay in the room and that technically makes sense. However, if you look at how those shots are done, it goes atomic breath, Godzilla roar, Kong roar back, and then Kong go down. So yes, but then like it also just seems like poor direction at that point, which it's either
Also,
poor
Kong's not going to
logistics
be
or
able to
poor
see
world building.
Godzilla.
Yeah,
I don't know if anyone's watched my older videos where I was a bit more anal around all this lot. I worked out how long it takes for Kong to fall through the hole. Would you like to know how long it takes for Kong to fall through the hole?
Yeah.
Go for it.
Here.
15 hours.
15
You're lying.
Oh,
You're
oh
lying.
my
later.
You're lying. You're
That is
lying.
insane.
No.
So like,
you're lying.
well, no, Godzilla is gonna breathe, and he's gonna be like, "Look, motherfucker, get up here!" So he's gonna be standing there for 15 hours, being like, "What the fuck is this dude?" And then
No,
That's
Kong
why
is
he
gonna
was
be-
walking away. He
Kong
was
is
standing
gonna
there for
rescue him,
ages,
and
and he's like,
then
bored now,
Kong's gonna
walking off him.
look at him, and he's gonna be like,
Yeah.
"Hold on, I'll be there just a minute," and then 2 hours later,
I refuse to believe that's true.
Well, here's the
No,
other
no,
thing.
no,
too,
no,
is that, like,
if we go
if
by
that's
that
the
one,
case, Godzilla could have fought Mechagodzilla and then
By
waited for
himself.
Kong. Yeah, Godzilla could have been like, "Yo, bro, I ain't like, I'm ready. Let's go." Because Godzilla full power beats Mechagodzilla, so he literally just decides, I'm gonna go deal with this first. Destroys Mechagodzilla before he gets fully activated. Just sits there, waits for Kong. Kong pops up. Godzilla's like, "Yo, I had this entire time to rest up. Let's go."
it was just seeing how it
Slams
goes from there.
his head on the
Godzilla
floor,
beats
goes, "Let's do this."
Mechagodzilla or vice versa.
This is a much more fun film.
Fun. in
Fun.
Humongous quotations.
There's
Bro,
one. There's
like, bro, do you not like fun, bro? Like, bro.
Oh no, I had fun once. It was awful.
Yeah, but it's for fans who do stuff together.
You know what? I think, bro, you're actually like fun phobic. You're funophobe.
Yes, I guess I
These
am.
cinephiles are so fun phobic, guys. Raise
Yeah.
awareness. Say no to fun phobia.
But I'm a fun phobic and yet spicy take here. I like the live action Transformers films and Fast and Furious films, so come at me. so don't tell me that I don't know what fun is, okay?
The Bayverse movies are actually fun because if you look at and they actually look good because if you look at the actual mechanics of how the each part interlocks with each other. The sound design also.
Oh
helps.
yeah.
Like you can hear each individual piece moving, and you can actually see how each individual piece interlocks with each other as the Autobots transform from a vehicle into a transformer. And the amount of care and meticulousness that went into crafting that, it really shows. Unlike Godzilla.
Oh yeah.
And their excuse of the fans.
Actually, no, hold on. I think JS wanted to say. I've been seeing him trying to speak for like past 5 minutes or something.
No, it's fine. There was another issue I had, like when the film was about to end. Like Godzilla just goes back to Rome to like.
Yeah, he just sleeps there like a baby.
And I thought, wait, so does he not need another new hideout? Like, or is he just like, is he like so Is he like fully powered on radiation that he doesn't need a new hideout anymore? He just like, I can sleep anywhere.
You would think Godzilla would at least would be like, I'm gonna go somewhere a little more private as opposed to like in the middle of
Yeah,
this
I'm gonna
city.
make sure no humans try and bomb my ass.
Yeah.
To be fair,
no.
To be fair, in King of the Monsters, he did have an entire city built around him.
Yeah, but that was
really
really like
existence of God, the cure for cancer, all of that just blown up to bring him back from the dead.
Well, think about it this way. Like, maybe that's his plan because, like, unless like they decide to evacuate Italy in like Rome, they're not gonna bomb a city full of people while they're still there. Because,
oh yeah, ever heard of Hiroshima?
Oh, I mean, hey, in that case, that's war. So they'll be like, you know what? We've declared war on Italy. The use of atomics is now allowed.
Hey, well, you know what? Actually, Italy sided with Hitler that one time, so maybe it's justified.
Like, you know what, Italy? Like, we let you off easy after World War II. We've come to collect. Bomb Godzilla.
No more pizza. Sacrificing pizza in the process.
Italy's like, beep the boop the boppity. Why you gotta do this, Godzilla? Why?
Mamma mia! Why?
Mamma mia, the Godzilla is causing radioactive fallout. What are we gonna do? All right, bomb him in the name of democracy.
In the name of democracy.
Zim, I already sent you the pictures.
You guys are nuts.
So those pictures, I would like to explicate that these pictures are all concept art for how the Hollow Earth would look like. I don't know if Zim, can you show them or? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I got you.
Okay, so all this concept art depicts the Hollow Earth as a dark volcanic place full of seismic activity where all the light that comes from it is from both bioluminescence and the volcanic activity.
This I prefer.
So I think that would be the more appropriate way to depict the Hollow Earth, because on top of the fact that you're acknowledging that the mantle of the planet exists, you're also acknowledging that it has an effect for on how the Hollow Earth looks, as well as how it behaves. So it would make the Hollow Earth make a little bit more sense. I mean, it doesn't, because the Hollow Earth is actually a real theory that people believe. It's like the flat Earth theory, but worse. But at least you're making it look more, I mean, less contrived, because this is like a fundamental change in reality when you just say, oh, the Hollow Earth is real. You got to be extra careful in how you depict the Hollow Earth. I don't know how Journey to the Center of the Earth does it, because I haven't seen that movie, but
so yeah, in Journey to Hollow Earth Lost World concepts have ranged across like cinema. In Journey to the Center of the Earth, essentially, depending on which version you've seen, they're either just caverns with bioluminescence, or they're closer to the Monsterverse where there's like a miniature sun in the middle. And even that concept is taken from Pellucidar, or At the Earth's Core, for the film version. And like that entire universe has like the world is on the inside of like the Earth. So it's similar to how the Monsterverse has the inverted gravity, where you have land masses that are on like the surface, like sort of facing diagonally from like the normal Earth. But it's a weird combination of those two versions of the same concept, but because they're combining those two versions, they don't work as well together because they don't fit each other.
Yeah, but yeah, no, that's my take on how the Monsterverse. I mean, how the Monsterverse should have depicted the Hollow Earth. Obviously, because the sun under the Hollow Earth I'm not
Doesn't
even
make
gonna
sense.
Dude,
attempt.
It's
yeah,
funny. One of my
like,
friends at
I-
work asked me. He was like, "Yo, how is there a sun there?" And I was like, "Yo, bro, I got no clue. I'm sorry."
No, but like
When
the
a lot of,
concept art for these are they look much better, and then the ideas like bioluminescence and the lava and shit, that's better.
Oh yeah, the classical design of Hollow Earth is that the Earth's core is like a mini sun, and
Mhm.
that is basically the light for the entirety of the inside of the Earth. But the way that the MonsterVerse has now done it with the mirrored surfaces, that no longer works. So yeah, the bioluminescence and the
Yeah.
lava, that would have been that would have been artistic.
That would have been so much better. Like that lava in Godzilla, the temple with Godzilla and all that. That could have been
hell yes.
something.
I mean, there is
Think about,
lava
like,
in the
deep
Hollow
sea
Earth. Like there are
fish.
sections with magma. Like in the kingdom of the Scar King, you see a bunch of magma flowing. So it
Well,
does
yeah.
exist. You can have it.
Yeah, it's Scar King living on Mustafar essentially, or at least something that looks like it.
So it's not
Think
like
about
you
all
can't
like
do
the
it.
deep sea fish that have all the bioluminescence going on. How much sense that would have made for a Hollow Earth that is lit up by just bits and pieces of light. Then you could have had all these titans with all these glow effects going on. That would have made more sense, and it would have looked very good.
Yeah, you can have cool stuff that it also makes sense. Those two things are not mutually exclusive. Because when people look at us, they look at us as the robot that hates fun and all like logical. Well, if it's logical, then it can't be fun. Here we are explaining a cool thing that also makes sense. How do you have that? It's gonna rock their brain, though. It's gonna rock their brain. Let's just be honest. And you can still have the cool visuals from the Hollow Earth if you really wanted to, but you can still have them make sense. So, like, I have
like,
to wonder, what is the thought process?
Someone said, I can't remember who, because one of my questions in one of my videos was, why does Kong jump off of the aircraft carrier when Godzilla blows up from underneath it? Because
not
Kong
get-
has never seen.
You know,
Sorry.
like so his ass wouldn't burn.
Yeah, it's like Kong would have died. He's like, okay, so how do you get him off the aircraft? Oh, he jumps. Okay, why did he jump? And then that's where the question gets stuck, because it's like, well, he doesn't know Godzilla can do that. He's never met him before, so why can he do that? And someone
Right.
suggested, what if you have Godzilla blow up a plane, a couple of planes with his breath as they fly past? He's like, yeah, really.
That could have been an easy fix.
Shove that
Yeah.
in, that'd be great.
Or what's it called? I can do you one better. Kong doesn't jump off. He's just sort of curious and doesn't know, but he doesn't want to get into the water because Godzilla's there. Godzilla hits the aircraft carrier, only grazes Kong. Kong gets knocked off into the water, further allowing Godzilla to take advantage of Kong while he's underwater. Like, there's a lot of other ways you can make the effect happen without us having to like ask questions as to how you got there. It's
Exactly.
like math. Like you can get a right question in math. You can get the right answer in math. It's just that you need to show your work, and if the work makes sense, then yeah. I mean, that's when you know you actually understand what you're doing.
The way it seemed like with that scene was that Kong just knocked him pretty much immediately after he knocked Godzilla off. He kind of noticed that like the water was like glowing, and he knows Godzilla's directly underneath there. Like even if he doesn't know exactly what Godzilla's gonna do, he could potentially may have had like an idea of like, I think that has something to do with this big lizard that I'm just like currently fighting. Maybe he's doing something. I probably should do something about it. But even then, like. Here's a question. Where did Kong learn how to swim, and how come we've never?
Yes.
Yeah, because he's been living on Skull Island his entire life, and he's
like it'd be one thing if like earlier in the film we were like shown like a moment where Kong was like just kind of swimming around doing something like that. That could have like set that up, like easy.
Well,
easy.
actually,
Oh my God.
like, although that one doesn't need to be directly explained, because at least in KSI we know that Kong was a baby and had been growing up on Skull Island, and there were at least monsters bigger than baby Kong. So there's at least bodies of water on Skull Island that Kong could have swum in and around.
Yeah,
So,
like that body of
him.
water where he was pulling the squid out, pretty much.
Yeah.
Like he could have gone through that, perhaps. I mean,
Like,
you could
not to
infer
mention he's-
something.
Yeah, and since he's hunted the squid, it can be inferred that Kong probably encountered them, and once he got big enough to a point, he could start hunting them. So
Yeah,
there is
point.
that.
I just double checked because I'm sure I heard this from somewhere. I just double checked. Gorillas can't swim.
Yeah.
Yeah, regularly.
but I just saw a tweet from Little Platoon. He said one of the first lines in Godzilla X Kong Frozen Empire, whatever it's called, is, "For most of our existence, we believed life could only exist on the surface of the planet. We've known about fish for most of our existence, and our ancestors lived in caves. Worms are not a new mystery. Moles are a thing. You have to wonder, what else were we wrong about?" We weren't wrong about that, Eileen. Some of us got past the second grade, and I was just thinking, yes, I've been saying this ever since I heard the trailer and the line. Like, first of all, we weren't wrong about that. We've never been wrong about that. Second, you've been wrong about a lot of other things. So
a better line that she could have said to kind of like, you know, front with that is like, we pretty much didn't know that there would potentially be like a 3-headed alien fucking dragon from space that pretty much was like living among us.
So actually, no, I'll do you one better. That line works if you're talking about like monsters. Just be like, for most of human history, we assumed monsters were myths and legends. And you know what? That line makes sense if we were following the trajectory set out after King of the Monsters.
Oh,
the general idea was that. Oh, sorry, Macaroni. Yeah, the general idea. Well, the general idea of what I suggested was like, we didn't know that aliens existed, like just anything extraterrestrial, like not of this earth, like an actual life form existing, just in general. Like, what else are we wrong about? They're kind of like, you know, and they could have just like went with that pretty much for this movie, you know.
Then like the line could have been like, oh, like we believed that life could only exist on this planet, and what else could be out there, you know, or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, not really. No, we have different theories explaining how different life forms could evolve. Even even got as creative as developing the theory of, oh, what if we have silicon-based
life forms?
Silicon-based life forms. Yeah. Another
Isn't that
thing.
Evolution, the film?
What?
I think.
Yeah.
Is it Evolution, the film? Have you seen that with Matthew Broderick?
Oh no, I haven't. The sentiment that we didn't know monsters existed. That was what I was gonna say. It reminded me a lot of what's his name, Randa from King of Kong Skull Island. I forgot his name. Bill Randa. Yeah, Bill Randa. Yeah. It reminded me of what Bill Randa said to General Packard in Kong Skull Island, and it would have fit too. Like, it would have fit with the rest of the multiverse.
A random line I just threw out there literally could tie to where the universe was going before GVK, and also ties into KSI. And you could also use that as like being like, a colleague from my organization years ago, Bill Randa. There you go. There's your little Easter egg for all the lore nerds there. Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, lore is very important in your own universe. That's why you need lore Bibles. Something I mean, like, you gotta have a lore Bible, but at the very same time, you have to make sure it's coherent. Because no matter many lore Bibles, no matter how much you can write in your lore Bibles, if it's not written coherently, then it's not gonna matter. I mean, just look at Rebel Moon. Like, Zack Snyder wrote an entire lore Bible, which is good in theory, but after looking at the movie, I don't think a lore Bible is gonna help him much.
J.K. Rowling wrote the Fantastic Beasts movies, which are set in the world that she created, but she couldn't even stay consistent with the lore she created in the books, or heck, even in the movie, the Harry Potter movies. So, just want to throw that out there.
I remember watching a live. All right, so I follow. I'm pretty sure you guys have heard of Mahler. I was watching his live stream of when he was playing Suicide Squad: Kill the Justice League, and basically, if you manage to watch a nuke 50 miles away, it still has the power to blind you.
It's temporary blindness, but yeah.
Temporary blindness, yeah. Yeah, you know, there was another issue I did have with Godzilla X Kong. Well, if Godzilla was storing all the energy, like, to fight the Kongs, like, why didn't he, like, go immediately to the Hollow Earth, to fight them instead of just, like...
Oh, yeah!
Yeah, no, what's it called? There's two huge contrivances. One of them is that the Uncharted
Just
area
two?
of the Hollow Earth... No, the two biggest ones. Because, like, they are completely world-breaking to the story. Because you have the fact that right under Kong's home, like his old cave he's been in, is a like little cave entrance to the uncharted area of the Hollow Earth that somehow
Yes.
has been undocumented.
Yeah.
And then the other is that the Iwi prophecy states Godzilla and Mothra would come back to fight Scar King and Shimo. Godzilla's been like store up all his energy because of the SOS, so Godzilla should have just gone directly down to Hollow Earth. His little spat with Kong wastes time, and the whole idea that Godzilla wouldn't go into Kong's territory betrays his purpose because it was always going to essentially happen because of the prophecy.
On top of that, Mothra doesn't do anything to stop Shimo or anything.
Yeah, like all she does is stop the army, but it's like Godzilla literally he fucking beat the shit out of other apes. So
If Godzilla wanted to, he could just annihilate. This is something that
it was
focused
like
Mothra. They could
Mothra
annihilate
really,
the entire monster. Ape.
It was like was Mothra really
necessary?
Yeah.
She transported Jaya to Egypt so she could have a psychic conversation with Godzilla to stop him fighting Kong. Jesus Christ, why was that a thing?
We
Because
needed
it's a
Iwi
callback
poop
to
magic.
the Showa era. Something we should have evolved from the very beginning. But no, we gotta have a Showa era.
I hope no one tries to tell me that Mothra, Godzilla, and Kong having their little moment is anywhere close to Godzilla, Rodan, and Mothra's little talk before they fight King Ghidorah, because I know.
Oh hell!
I know someone's gonna say that moment is just like the moment in Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster.
Oh
I
hell
know
no! It's not even close.
No, someone's gonna say it. That
was the moment I wanted to walk out of the cinema.
Literal.
Yeah,
Have you not seen Ghidorah Three-Headed Monster?
This reminds me. Now that I think about it, this reminds me. There was this one kid in the theater where in a theater, because this is footage that I saw before watching the movie. There was a kid. He was asking, and this isn't necessarily part of the plot or anything, but it's mainly just the sentiment towards Godzilla movies in general. So, there was this one kid. He asked, "Hey, how this monster that Kong just killed? How come he has green muscles, but how come he has red muscles but green blood?" And the other kid's response is, "This is a movie about a giant nuclear atomic lizard." And the kid was like, "Oh, okay." And that got me thinking, like, is this really what people think about Godzilla? Because that devalues what Godzilla is in so many ways. Saying that Godzilla is just a giant nuclear lizard intended for children is literally the Patrick Willems fallacy in its most classic forms. Yes, it is this is a movie about space wizard intended for children. Okay, then why do you care so much?
Oh, what's it called? We got another person here. SCGF movies.
Hey, welcome to the stream.
Was waiting for you, man. Where you been?
I was watching the movie. I'm trying to set up my my goddamn profile picture won't show.
Huh.
But like,
if you set up the account, then it'll be easier.
All right, cool. So it's okay. So if I were to take this from outside of a Godzilla fan perspective, Godzilla and Kong is literally just the Fast and Furious. That's literally the best way I can describe it. Is that it's just a very passing and going film, but I mean, because it's over before you know it, basically. And then I would just honestly give it an 8 out of 10. But world building is essentially fucked. There's no saving that. The scaling, there's none of that except for like 1 to 3 shots, maybe. Like with Kong in Egypt, like the one shot of him walking across the skyline. I thought that was a great shot. Stories, if you even want to call any of it one. Kong and Suko, I think was great for what it is. I think that was the best part. I think they should have pushed that more. Like that whole fucking exposition that Rebecca Hall was giving in the Hiwi Temple about like explaining how the Scar King came to be and all this other shit was fucking stupid. And I think instead they should have, to really make that better, they should have just done like a flashback of like showcasing that whole thing happening. That would have been better.
Yeah, it seemed like that exposition was out of order.
I know they always want to claim they want to treat the monsters like actions and bring more monsters. Well, this is like
You had the opportunity.
Yeah, you had one
The
shot.
one time
I
where
know.
it makes sense, and they
This
don't
is-
do it.
I know this is like the closest they will ever get, and I'm gonna put it that way because I don't think they're gonna get another movie after this because this is just like a very standard Hollywood slop movie. It's nothing.
Oh,
It's nothing. It's
They did
nothing
break
special.
even though, so they definitely will make more.
I mean, good
Yeah.
for them.
And apparently it's had the best
Yeah, they're gonna make
opening,
more.
I think. Like one of the best openings for the Monsterverse, which I'm like,
I just find it like I was like messaging about this in my server about how like I just find it baffling seeing kids watching this movie. Like mainly the idea of like modern kids going to see a Godzilla movie, which after watching
Modern
this,
kids.
after watching this, it makes perfect sense because fucking Kong using Suko as a fucking baseball bat.
I will say this.
That
I
was
will
the
say
best.
this.
That scene was good. That was funny.
That was well executed. 10 out of 10.
I will say this. You comparing it to Fast and the Furious is very accurate because the pacing was very fast and it did make me furious.
Okay, then I might be the only one here, but like the first 2 acts of the film, for me, they felt slow for me. I don't know why though.
I think on the Godzilla side of things, if like they just kept cut anytime it kept getting good with Godzilla, they just cut. Like they didn't let it linger any longer than that. He's constantly on the move, and then like just more exposition of people talking about him, like, oh, he's now entering the radioactive Arctic. He's now going into their territory.
yeah.
Isn't it? Fearsome
was-
Godzilla, he has now evolved.
Yeah. I were to describe Godzilla, it's obviously very clear. Everyone knows that like Adam Wingard is pulling heavy inspiration from the fucking Showa series, but it's very reminiscent of these 2 movies. The obvious being Godzilla versus Megalon, but also Ghidorah, the 3-headed monster. I feel like those 2 Showa films is like GXK into one or whatever. That's how I would put it. And
Yeah.
like it's I enjoyed Godzilla and Kong. It's just the pacing. It's too short of a movie. Like I feel like it was too short.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah,
You wanted
it
more
definitely
of
was.
that? Are you
But-
serious?
Say again?
You wanted more of that?
I wanted what I wanted more of was like visual storytelling. Like they did that. They were doing it with with all the apes and part of Shimo, whatever.
Mamu.
Shimu. Yeah.
ShamWow.
Mamu.
Shamu the Ice Age whale. It's a terrible monster design. I don't like Shimu at all. It's just she was okay. Like
She's a very bear design.
yeah, it's very I don't know. But oh my
It's
god.
like okay design, but there's not much to write home about at the end of the day.
Babe, wake up,
Yeah.
dude. Godzilla Origins just dropped. Fucking Star Eater.
On what you said regarding the Showa era CGF, I wanted to posit this point, and it's that stop taking inspiration from mediocrity. Like, stop taking inspiration from the Showa era. If you're not gonna like improve on what is there, then maybe just don't do it at all. Take
Or
inspiration
what's
from
it
the good.
Don't what's it called? Don't go below the Showa era. Like again, Megalon was more integral to his story than Shimo was, and same with Jet Jaguar. Both of those monsters had more to do with their plot. Seatopia's motivations were not as convoluted as Scar King's, and Godzilla acted far more consistently and more heroically than he did in this film.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, I agree.
Godzilla is. I okay. So this is what I hate.
Also, there's an Acno. Hello, Acno.
Oh, hello.
Hello.
Oh,
What's up, Agno?
yeah, not a. I don't know how I feel about this film.
I feel like another thought I had after the movie and thinking back of like the Showa comparison is that history, you know, like the saying of like history always repeats itself or whatever.
Yep.
The same thing's going on with the fucking MonsterVerse. It's exactly like the show series, like 2014, you know, 54 comparison starts off serious, blah blah blah, and then as more films go on and on and on, it becomes more fucking ridiculous and out of the question.
Someone linked a video to me. I can't remember what the video was. It was someone arguing, like, can Godzilla be silly? Something like that.
Yeah. I kind of watched
yeah.
and
I started watching it. I got a few minutes in, and I was just laughing my head off because the guy was basically arguing against himself. He essentially said,
Are you talking about Mike's Monsters video?
Possibly. He started off saying that Godzilla vs. Megalon was the reason that Godzilla was so successful. What the fuck?
What?
He then
What?
compared.
I'm
He
sorry.
compared
A minute.
He
Hold on,
compared it
let's
to the
pause.
Batman TV films.
Oh
So
yeah,
when,
it is Mike's Monsters video. Yeah.
Oh, is that one then?
It
Because
is,
then
yeah.
he says, "Oh, but the Batman series got sillier as it went on," and I went, "Yes." And George Clooney offered refunds to people because the film was so shit.
Oh, not to mention the fact
Exactly.
that, like, what's it called? The only reason why Batman got silly was because of the Hays Code and things like that. Like, it wasn't like they wanted to go in a silly direction.
Yeah, and like same for like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but like Toho, like they were making Godzilla silly because like they were trying to, like they were competing, you know, for television and shit. Correct me if I'm wrong, but like
Competing against
No,
Gamera
you're right, yeah.
and,
You know.
and Zone Fighter or something.
yeah, Zone Fire, like they were competing, and that's actually a reason. But like, you know, it's like, I don't know.
If I
saying
may,
that Godzilla can be silly because the show era was silly is like saying Batman can be silly now because Adam West did.
Well, to be honest, the show was the weakest out, in my opinion.
Oh, by the way,
if I may-
that's the subject of one of my videos now, the versatility of Godzilla. I feel like, you know, the more you make him a silly goofball, the more you dilute his meaning.
I feel like if you were to take inspiration from the Showa era, you probably need to recognize what are the things that the Showa era did right, and what can we do to like incorporate them and potentially in as far as like what they did wrong and avoid them. You know,
Because
that's
I feel like Adam just saw the fucking fight scenes instead of like an actual like. It's almost like he didn't look on like what some
that's
of the show movies did successful.
Yeah, and
it's
that's
like,
the thing. He learned the wrong lessons, basically.
yeah, like he just saw the fights and be
Like
like,
a child.
okay, let's make Godzilla do a flip.
Yeah, like a child would do. This is exactly the kind of thought process a child would go through.
I'm surprised.
Now,
Go ahead.
yeah, and people would see that as a positive, but first of all, I wouldn't show my 7-year-old cousin Godzilla -1 for obvious reasons.
I would.
It's a bad video because it has stuff about Godzilla -1 in it. Even though I would say, well, let me go back? Yeah. So I want to hear the first thing he says, and we'll stop it actually here.
Have to have terribly written human plots. Every single monster movie with terribly written human plots would be improved by best.
So we have King Kong
human
05.
plots. This is how we can say
Godzilla
Godzilla
-1
-1 is better than anything the MonsterVerse has to offer. The Godzilla 2014 is better than
2014.
Godzilla X Kong. The Jurassic Park is better than Jurassic
Jurassic
World, and
World.
the Jaws is better
And
than
Jurassic
Meg
Park
2
too.
The Trench.
So like, wait, I'm confused. Why? I'm confused on what the situation is.
So a lot of
like people calling it
people-
bad or what's
Well,
going on?
So people will say Godzilla X Kong has a bad plot, and then say -1 had a good plot, so therefore there's no excuse. And then people are like, Godzilla X Kong and -1 are two different films. Just because they have Godzilla in it doesn't mean that they are comparable. So as a result, when anyone in a video says, "Oh, anything about Godzilla -1" or praises the merits of Godzilla -1 to downplay GXK, people are like, "Oh, video automatically bad because they bring up -1."
What?
But yeah, that seems
I'm
to
so-
be the meta argument at the moment.
I think that depending on how the argument or comparison is made, it can be either valid or invalid.
I think that's true, yeah. But a lot of these people who bring up the fact that -1, like if -1 is even in the discussion, oftentimes don't or are not that nuanced with their take.
Yeah,
they'll
I've
be
been
like,
seeing that lately. Like people are fucking getting pissed that when -1 is mentioned. Like, I don't know. Usually I don't watch these type of videos, but like, I guess if you're like, you know, pulling up -1 and saying that it's better, then I guess I don't know.
Like, I don't even need to bring up -1 to this say
what's the point of bringing -1 in this? Like, we get it, we understand.
I mean, I could argue wholeheartedly from the bottom of my heart and from the tips of my balls that Megalon is better than GXK, just in terms of just pure plot and plot holes.
Yeah, I agree.
But
I'm on the opposite camp of that, I guess. I wholeheartedly compare -1 to GXK because I both think they're good. I think they're both excellent examples of what the subgenre of films they try to accomplish.
Okay. Well, we'll see as we move further in. But we continue.
Sorry. Never mind.
I know you're good. What were you gonna say?
I was gonna say like it was. I haven't seen people say this, but I'm glad he said that Jaws was better than Meg 2.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Thank you so much.
Everyone knows that the Meg was a critical masterpiece. That's why he didn't bring up the first Meg movie.
Oh, thank you.
I like the music. I like Meg 2.
I have a bit of a question. So, I've heard this. I just heard this from Vic, and this is something that I've heard the sentiment before in the past. But a movie that is trying to achieve something, is it? We all know that GXK wasn't trying to be well written. I mean, it was like I said, they were just throwing stuff at the wall. But should that really be praised just by merit of succeeding? Because we could argue different things, that people were trying to make something bad on purpose, and well, where is the inherent value in succeeding in doing something bad? That would be like me intentionally trying to build a table with only 2 legs, and the table falls over and it's completely unusable, but I succeeded in making a useless table. So where is the merit in that exactly?
Well, for one, I highly doubt that GXK, the process for it was making a bad film on purpose. The film genre it was trying to go for was an adventure thriller, and it was written in such a way that it emphasizes that, and I believe it succeeds in those merits.
Well, there are plenty of films one can argue that are adventure thrillers, that they're wacky and crazy. Journey to the Center of the Earth, for example, had a very light tone and a very tightly written plot, but it was still fun and enjoyable. So I have to ask, why can't that be achieved in this movie? Because with a Platoon says later in the video, if the movie was well written, nothing bad comes out of it. Like, nobody suffers, nobody gets to call out the plot for being the way it is. On the contrary, people would praise it more because there's more to praise.
Or like, for example, we have Jurassic Park is like a prime example of a action thriller, and
it was like pretty
plotting.
Yeah, and they, it was a pretty well written film, but they were able to, have that genre in, but have it well written.
If we want to bring up Giant Monsters, that he also brings up Pacific Rim as well as being a pretty good example of a blockbuster that had a serviceable plot. Like, he doesn't say it's the best thing ever, but he does say that it is serviceable, so there's that.
Then I'd argue it's a matter of something that's being written differently than something written terribly.
But then we could go into writing details as well, that's when we get to the movie, we could talk about that. I guess I just don't think there's. I think that sentiment is left wanting, if that makes sense.
Yeah, he breaks down the plot. So I mean, if we wanted to go into details, we could just watch the video. But yeah, I don't like the plot of GXK. It's different, but that's not an inherent quality to have. That just every single movie is going to be different. That's just the status quo. No 2 movies is going to be exactly the same. Well, maybe that's a bit of a generalization, but it's very rare to see 2 movies. So being different, I wouldn't consider that a virtue. That's just normal.
But I could also say, even if movies are different, we could still make comparable inferences it's easier when they're within the same genre or within the same franchise. Like Force Awakens and the original Star Wars both have very similar plots to one another and very similar structure to one another. To the point that like the entire meta behind that, the arguments with that film is that it's essentially a ripoff of A New Hope, and whether that's a good or a bad thing. So, like overall, I think that it's a matter of like whether I think it's a matter for people who don't find a problem with it, whether or not like they have a problem with it. But I think that's wanting. But yeah, like Black said, execution too. But let's.
Extent of this stupid line on Twitter, and 1 or 2 people attempted to autistically tell me that it actually be perfectly fine.
So it's like where it would still be considered all the services across this miles do.
Fine, because Eileen was
What? Wait, hold on. Worms and go back. Worms and moles.
People attempted to autistically tell me that it actually be perfectly.
Okay, worms and moles and even most caves would still be considered on the surface of the earth. The crust is miles deep, and the woman is referring to life in the mantle/core of the earth. Okay, first of all, no, the maps in Hollow Earth do not indicate that there is a mantle in the, like, okay, so if you look at the maps, right? If you look at the maps as well as how the heaves travel through the Hollow Earth, it's like there is a void, a black void of both light and darkness in between the crust of the earth and the Hollow Earth, because there is no mantle in this planet, which I don't really know how that works, considering that we kind of need the mantle, and it just completely throws off, the existence of tectonic plates and volcanic eruptions and stuff like that, because a lot of it has to do with seismic activity. Okay, so
not entirely, I don't think.
No, they do. At least most volcanoes.
It's not a void. In the scenes, they do show
shows us,
cavernous areas.
Well, it shows us cavernous areas, but then when we see the portals transition them down, you'll see that black void there, and then you come off on the other side.
Yeah.
Which either it's implying.
But in that void, there's still a cavern. At least from what I remember in GXK, in the new scene.
I mean, they do show us.
GVK, it is a bit of a void.
Well, no, in both of them there are, and I think we see it here in the video as well, because I think there's a clip of it. But it's weird because like we'll see like the tunnels that lead into the Hollow Earth, which then implies that either those tunnels are the same as the portals, but then with how the portals function, are we mapping like the length of the portal, or like we know where the portal is and therefore we're mapping a trajectory route into the Hollow Earth? And again, this is just going off the fact that Hollow Earth from KSI and King of the Monsters was different from how they do Hollow Earth in GVK and GXK as well.
Yeah,
and then
might I add
Axis Mundi in entirety.
Might I add that so from what I remember in GXK, because I've only ever seen it once. Okay, and this is based off of GVK, which I do remember. So they go through the portal, and they have this sort of, it's kind of like when you're pushing through a piece of plastic with a like a plastic bag with a pencil, and then it kind of dents in until it breaks through. That's kind of like how the heave travels through the portals of the Hollow Earth. But you can see that there is a void there. Now, after they exit through that void and that tunnel of light, which is, I assume, the fabric of that divides the Hollow Earth and the normal Earth. After that, they come out of a cave. So what I imagine that to be is, I guess you could call it a canyon, an upside down canyon, because that's what it looks like. I mean, that's how it behaves. I think in GVK, that's how it behaves. So you come out of the portal, and then you come out of like the crevice of a canyon, which is like the ceiling of the Hollow Earth. And so you have to adjust gravity. But that void is, I'm guessing it's like the midway point between the fabric made of light, which the heave cuts through. Which, I mean, I'm not really sure why that's even there, especially when Godzilla can just drill a hole into the center of the portal required.
That's
the
really
thing. Like, they have the portals, like they have the portals, and they behave this way, implying that the Earth doesn't have a mantle. But then Godzilla drills through the center of the Earth, and clearly there is a mantle that Godzilla bores a hole through. I mean, we see magma and lava pouring out of where he shot down. So like,
Mhm.
I don't think the film really and that's GVK, not GXK, but the hole still exists.
Yeah, it's
So-
well, it's then like with how the magma shoots up, because we don't really see like magma seeping down or up into Godzilla. It's almost like there's the mantle with like the liquid rock part, and then Godzilla essentially blasted that piece of the mantle like down, and then finally what was left of it popped up on Kong's side.
Yeah,
And
that's
then he
what
climbs back down.
And that's the crux of my whole point. You can't just have no mantle and a mantle at the same time. You got to go with one and pick it. The reason why they can't pick it, however, is because no matter which one they pick, the plot is negatively affected anyway. Because if they pick the Godzilla option, then the heaves are completely useless, and all the people that tried to take Kong to the Hollow Earth all died for nothing. And the heave part doesn't work, because then now Godzilla can't bore a hole into the center of the Earth. Because then it would, screw up all the wormholes in the Hollow Earth, and he can't really reach Kong, and so Godzilla and Kong can't fight. So no matter which one you choose, it doesn't work.
I would say in GVK, well, I can only assume that Godzilla's beam did go through a makeshift portal of some sort, or maybe one was created after the fact. And
yeah, but then,
I know for a GXK that there definitely is a mantle of some sort, or some sort of cavern that they do go through, because they do show it with all through the heave scene. It's dark, but there's still the light reflecting off of the energy of the heave going through it at that speed due to the gravity shenanigans. But there is something there. They are going through something. It's not an endless void.
The mantle isn't dark, by the way. There's molten rock.
Yeah, well, the problem I would say is that, like, with that argument is that we then have to, like, make up the fact that either there was a portal there that Godzilla hit, or Godzilla made a portal on his own, which then has to be accounted for in future films, or it seems like a weird one-off occurrence to justify this one film. And
it also affects like the power scaling too, because if Godzilla can just create portals now, and also wouldn't it be that just a major convenience that Godzilla happened to, like, if we're going with there was a portal there already, if we're going with that argument, then that would just make the whole thing extremely convenient.
I wouldn't go with that for justification. Something I thought up right now would probably be that Godzilla's ability is probably specifically unique enough that he's probably one of the only times that can do that due to his ability. And I would argue that only Mechagodzilla with the Hollow Earth radiation might be able to do the same.
I would say the problem with that, though, is that, like, we don't see portals near the Kong Temple, and when the radiation interacts with Godzilla bits and the rest of that little, like, empty castle, cave, fortress thingy, we don't really see anything to imply that there are portals there. It seems to just be an energy source. And the only justification I could say that Godzilla's, like, energy could possibly make portals is that Godzilla's readings are similar to the energy, and that Godzilla in Monarch is explaining to be putting off more energy than the Hollow Earth itself. But, like, again, like, it just becomes convenient. Like, for example, at the Earth's core, which is the influence behind how they designed the Hollow Earth in GXK moving forward, is that there's an ecosystem underneath the ground. But in that story, they do kind of do a Godzilla, and they just drill down through the core. But they end up going through, like, the mantle and the molten rock and stuff, and then finally they end up on the other side, which would imply that there is either a way that the portal, like, their little tunnel closed up, which is why they weren't able to go back, plus they couldn't shoot themselves back up with their drill to go back the way they came. So there was at least good enough reason as to why you weren't able to go to and from Pellucidar as easily as like you would be able to in the Monsterverse, given the technology of Monsterverse.
Yeah, here's how I would fix it. I would just cut the heaves out entirely from GVK and just replace it with just an expedition through a cave that goes down into the Hollow Earth, as opposed to just having the heaves there. Just a cave, and no portal, no anything. Just a cave that leads down, a massive pit that Kong and the people can just fall.
It would
through
actually,
into.
like, honestly, it would kind of be a more interesting visual to see Kong either equipped with something which then could sell toys, or with like his hands literally just bringing down people down into the Hollow Earth, which would still be like dangerous as using new technology that was quote unquote designed for this, although like we don't know if it was ever tested. So like if we're concerned about like we're losing that Hollow Earth flute visual, then like you could still have a sequence that provides tension and has visual intricacies to it. So
Oh yeah,
that's why like I don't take the idea that we'd be losing a cool visual from it, because then you can make a cool visual in a hypothetical to justify its new inclusion.
What
yeah. Like,
I would
if you
do,
need like a go ahead.
what I would do to fix up any of those like contrivances or plot holes is, one, I would switch the location of the I would either switch the location of the temple and the power source, because essentially Kong has to be on the other side of the earth for the beam to come from under him. I would either have it come from the top and switch it to that the temple is somewhere under Hong Kong. I would also have a scene where Walter Simmons says that they built their base on the closest reading they had to the power source, which was over Hong Kong. And then I would have a similar to how they do it in GXA with the pyramid portal. I would have a scene where the ground sort of like collapses in the same way, and then the beam comes up, implying that a new portal has been created, just to show the portal, just to keep the rules clear and consistent.
Well, I think in the case of like the Egypt portal, it seems that like that portal was always there, but since nothing was being pushed through it, that's why we don't see like major upheavals in the ground. At least that's like what it seems to be the case, and the reason like what I'd use to support that is that since obviously the iwi aren't going up to the surface, there's no reason for them to be flooping around with the portal, so that's why like something like that has never happened. Plus, given how big Kong is, even if like we got small things from this portal shooting up, they wouldn't be big enough to actually cause like too much disturbances on the ground in Egypt.
Yeah, I think there's enough enough material seen to imply that portals can be closed or covered up, since a lot of them are in deep caverns, or
some of them are
be closed.
some of them are, then some of them aren't, but
some are higher than others in the surface.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Wandering about, killing the big bad titans that spawn in every now and then, causing incalculable damage to every famous landmark they stumble across. Look at them go there, fighting away. Pretty sure they wiped out all of Italy there, but sometimes you have to destroy ancient civilizations in order to save them, right?
That's always on the surface, always below. As long as they don't venture into each other's territories, we've got nothing.
I actually want to go back real quick.
That's always on the surface.
So
see, the gravity well is what I would call the void. That's the void.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
it's a tunnel. There's still stuff around it, as we see
Like
in
what?
GSK. Rocks and stuff.
Well, like, I would also say, like, however, the gravity well, how it's shown here, is different to how it was in GVK, where you could see that the portal flooped and duped when it got down to the Hollow Earth. Not to mention that I was pausing because of the whole, like, Godzilla Kong territory thing, because Godzilla was being called down to the Hollow Earth anyway, so it makes you wonder why Godzilla in the first place allowed Kong to go down there and have his territory and say, like, I'm not going to go down there if you don't go up here. Because ultimately, if that signal was needed, he'd have to be the one to break that truce between the two that he set up himself, which calls into question Godzilla's character. But the reason it's a problem too is that we don't really get any commentary on that at all.
Yeah, on that subject, can you go back to the diagram?
Yeah,
all of Italy there, but sometimes you have to destroy ancient civilizations in order to save them, right?
That's always on the surface.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So the rocks that Vic was mentioning. Those, I remember the scene. I pulled it up, and I'm seeing it right now. The rocks appear after they leave the gravity well, not during. Because if it were during, then they would be crashing into it. But all they're getting is gravity-related turbulence, which I don't really know how that works exactly.
Gravity floops.
Yeah, gravity floops. It's literally just that. But between the gravity well and the crust between the crust of the Earth and Kong's territory. The line that divides the gravity well section of the planet and Kong's territory, that line is where the Hollow Earth. That's where the gravity well ends, and that's where the Kong's territory begins. So I would so the rocks, from what the film shows us, begin at that segment. They're nowhere in the gravity well. And again, the mantle is not just rocks, the type of that we see in GVK or GXK. I know the ones you're referring to, but the mantle doesn't have rocks like that. It's molten. It is very high temperature, and it could melt humans alive. Well, humans can't actually melt, at least not the way that you're thinking, because the flesh, the debris and the dust and all of those particles would stick to the molten flesh. But yeah, no, humans would not survive at least being near the mantle, because the mantle is, how hot is the mantle? Because I'm pretty sure it's like around the same surface as around as hot as the surface of the sun.
Yeah, I think they're that close and or even hotter, I think. But
yeah. And which scene did you rewatch?
The one in GVK where they hold on.
Well, I give you that one because admittedly, yes, in the void part it is a void, but in GXK I would say they corrected that and they show the void is a tunnel. Even if it's logistically, realistically wrong, that's what it is in universe.
I should look up the scene.
I would definitely say we could say that that's wrong in universe, but then that just runs into the other problem of how they've constructed the Hollow Earth.
It's a significant development in the plot. No, I'm not being sarcastic, it really is. You'd be surprised by how significant Kong's toothache turns out to be, and then you'll be surprised at how insignificant that significant thing turns out to be. But we'll get there in due course. Unfortunately, this is where we leave one of the best bits of the movie, and we hop away to the humans, which is when things get very, very dumb. But Platoon, we just watched these films for the monsters! So yeah, why are these people here, and why are they taking up all of my time with their annoying fucking humanness? Our segue is the form of a lecture that attempts to clumsily remind everyone what happened in the previous movie. The bit where they take a spaceship down to the center of the Earth and find another world down there? The bit that should make you very depressed because you're sitting here watching this, when you could be watching Journey to the Center of the Earth instead.
Most of human civilization, we believe that life can only exist on the surface of the planet.
Oh yeah, it's Eileen again. Remember Eileen from the last movie? What a terrific character. And also, what an absolute fucking moron. Eileen, fish are not a new discovery. We've known about them for a while. Same thing with ants. Moles exist. Our ancestors lived in caves. We've known about things living underground since before we had writing. I mean, come on, Eileen. See what I did there? Yeah, that's kind of
I think that as a critique is really stupid.
Yeah, hold on. I actually have a thing to say. This is what you would call a nitpick because it doesn't necessarily affect the plot in any significant way. However, I would argue that the criticism is rather indicative of how the writing is going to be moving forward. Because number one, the dialogue choice was rather bad, all things considered. Of course, we all know that she's referring to the Hollow Earth and everything, but there could have been better ways to say, as Little Platoon is going to point out later in when you decide to pause it. But there are definitely better ways to be subtle about it without sounding kind of dumb. Now, as for the writing quality, and this is something that Little Platoon points out later, I believe. Well, actually, no, I don't think he points this out. But one thing I have to argue about nitpicks in particular is that wouldn't you want your movie to not have anything to nitpick in the first place? Because if you can iron out anything wrong with it, then why wouldn't you? Clearly this is not consequential. This is just the one thing, but in a much better movie this would be the only thing to critique. However, again, this is like a prelude. It's like a preamble, a portent, if you will, of what is to come, because again, it's indicative of how the writing of the movie is going to be moving forward.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a nitpick, but it comes down to the fact that if your essentially if your exposition isn't this thorough, sure, okay, but then we get into the point 2 where there are plot holes in the movie, major ones. There's one in the movie that he doesn't even mention that occurs, but the point being is that if your film has like plot holes, then it also brings dialogue like this into question, because it shows that they weren't caring on the small things, so it shows they weren't even going to care about the big things either.
Exactly. Yeah. Like if you don't care about in small itty bitty things like dialogue, which I don't consider dialogue to be all that small, to be honest, because for starters, dialogue informs us. They're like the windows into the minds of characters, and character writing is very important in a plot, depending on, of course, the type of story that you're writing. But like dialogue is a window into the minds of characters, and you kind of want that. You want the dialogue to reflect their intelligence, and that phrase was not very intelligent. So for like a genius, like, well, no, she's not. I don't think she's established to be a super genius, but like a scientist, you would think a scientist would know that. Hell, I don't think anybody past the age of 7 would not know that life exists underground. So yeah, again, it's indicative.
Yeah.
I would disagree. Like, I don't think the line is entirely indicative of any bad writing, especially if you yourself said we all know what she meant. But like, why point it out if it's like I don't even think it's worth a nitpick.
Well, for that, you'd have to acknowledge that the film is badly written in the first place, which we can get to later because Platoon is going to explain it. But yeah, there are several plot holes that damage the movie, and I would also like to preamble for any potential criticisms, both here and out there, and by out there I mean outside this stream, that this does not necessarily have to affect your enjoyment. Of course it could, although that depends on the person, and that's the part where I would argue that is subjective. But I mean, this doesn't necessarily have to affect enjoyment, but these problems do exist, and I think it's important to talk about them, because I mean, film is an art, and well, refining art is probably the best thing you could do with art. I don't think we could ever reach a peak, but that just means that gives us an infinite potential for evolution in terms of writing, and we can only get better from here. So there's no really any point to stagnate, which is why I value film criticism like this so much, because I value writing as much as I do.
I think it all, like, again, it comes to the point that you can make better dialogue, but I would say that ultimately, if this was the worst of it, then yeah, it's a nitpick, but it does.
Oh yeah, this isn't the worst thing that people say in this movie, in dialogue-wise.
No,
The Hollow Earth in Godzilla vs. Kong's, well, not Godzilla vs. Kong. The Hollow Earth in Godzilla X Kong, specifically. Let's use that as an example. So in the events of the movie, right? The Hollow Earth is this one thing, right? It's this subterranean world, and we're not going to talk about the portals here. We're going to talk about the Iwi in the Hollow Earth. Now, Gia is the last surviving member of the species. Well, not the species. That almost sounds racist, but no, not the species. Her culture. She's like the last of her race. But turns out she isn't, because there are Iwis underground in the Hollow Earth. Now, one has to ask, how did they get there? Did they originate from Skull Island, or did they originate from Hollow Earth, and were they always there? Now, if they originated from Skull Island, how did they get to Hollow Earth? Then the next logical answer would then be, oh, Mothra took them there. However, there is absolutely no way in hell that Mothra can take them there. Now, we see in the movie that Mothra takes Gia from the Hollow Earth to the surface world in Egypt. But that is what you would call the plot doing whatever it wants, going bananas, because at no point was Mothra established to be able to have people hitch a ride on her, let alone all the gravitational BS that happens between portals and everything, because we know for a fact that the Titans travel using these portals from the surface world to the Hollow Earth. So all of that should have crushed Gia to death. And so if they existed all this time in the Hollow Earth, if they originated from the Hollow Earth, then where did the Iwis from Skull Island come from then? So, like, no matter how you slice it, there is going to be a problem, and the problem originated from introducing the idea that the
Iwis existed in the Hollow Earth in the from the very beginning, and what was the next thing I was going to say? Right. Okay, so the problem originated from introducing the Iwis out of nowhere, and we know why they introduced the Iwis there. It was because they wanted to have a theme where Gia and Kong, they're similar, right? They're the last of their species, and they finally find their kind. They finally find the people to call their own, but they need to unite to save them from annihilation. But the issue with the theme, however, is that because we all know this is what they wanted. Because if people can extract that theme from the story, it obviously then it means that the thing existed to begin with. This was the writer's intentions. If this many people, because if you talk to this with any Godzilla fan, any MonsterVerse fan in particular, that this is a theme, they will more than likely agree. 9 times out of 10, they will agree that is the overarching theme. If you can extract it, then you can pretty much make a reasonable assumption or an educated guess that this was the idea that the writers had for a theme. However, the thing with the theme is that within its own narrative, it doesn't make any sense.
I was going to say, I was like, didn't King of the Monsters and this movie infer that they were originally from Hollow Earth and they were driven to Skull Island? I think in GVK they said that Skull Island was basically Hollow Earth coming up to the Earth.
Right. So so it's kind of like how them migrating to the Skull Island, correct? Correct? Or was it Skull Island just sprouted out of the Hollow Earth? How did that happen?
They don't really explain it in lore, from what I can recall, but that was always, I think, a thing that it always intended since calling Skull Island. And the Hollow Earth, then there's some deleted shots from the trailer where you see the original Hollow Earth where it's all red down there, where the skull crawlers come from under the air. That's probably where the Iwi originated from as well. Probably before the whole portals thing. So, but I think it's still intended, especially because Monarch also has different types of portals as well.
Wait, what do you mean before the portals? You mean portals formed after, or what do you mean by before the portals?
Before they added the whole Hollow Earth portals in GVK.
Oh, okay. That the portals in and of themselves they're a completely separate issue, because
I know as you said that it wouldn't make sense because they would crush their bodies and everything. So
yeah, exactly.
I just feel like there might be just some way they explain it, but I know that's probably just something they didn't think that through or something like that.